Just to clarify things, and so people understand, you've got sprint pigeons and some middle
distance to long distance pigeons
distance pigeons. The sprint pigeons and the middle to long distance, will they be paired?
They're all paired up.
All paired up at the same time.
All this theory
in December.
Yeah, that's right. The theory, which is it's 20 years backwards in my opinion, and because they're going to race to 500 miles, you know, they don't pair them up while marching and things like that. That theory is it's proved in here, and it's proved, you know, all of it will now, that people who race widowed, or even natural, I've done it myself when I race with my father, and natural pigeons, and it's an extra motivation. Pair up, rear a baby, split them up, and start again. I mean, you can't have them keep rearing babies, especially on natural, because they just get chucking flights out.
Yes. So you paired your sprint pigeons up, your middle and long distance pigeons, all at the same time.
That's correct, yeah.
They won't necessarily all bring youngsters up, will they?
Not all of them, no.
You'll have swapped eggs about. What is your method? The sitting the eggs, they hatch the eggs. How long will the youngsters stop with the cocks? In other words, the cock and the hen have got youngsters in the nest.
Yeah.
How long will the youngsters stay in that compartment?
Well, I've done it two different ways. There's two ways to do it, which I've done both, and this way the youngsters really get robust youngsters.
And they've been successful both.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. The system I used last year, in my racing shed anyway, is around 16 days old, and I'll fetch all my young birds out and put them in the young bird shed with my hens on a bit of straw, and the trough will be in front of them all the time. The water fountain will be there available for the babies to drink, and there'll be no top on it. They can have a bath and they can drink, you know. And at 18 days old, you'll see them babies going to the trough and drinking and eating, and at night time they can go like this. You do it occasionally, sneak in a corner, and it's not quite, you know, it tends to be a bit shy. But them youngsters at end at night, they'll be like crops.
They'll never be checked or nothing. No. There'll never be a check in none of them.
They come absolute fantastic.
And the cocks will be in the boxes on their own.
The cocks then stop on their own.
So we've took one round youngsters off. These hens will finish off rearing these youngsters. How long will you leave the hens with the youngsters?
Well, I don't suppose it really matters, because the particular hens what's rearing the babies are not going to be raced.
Yes, I understand.
I'll rear them till I think that the youngsters, you know, are on their own 2 feet, and then they start pitching, and that's when I start basketing the youngsters up. But sometimes you get occasional youngster in race shed, which might be 4 days at back at others.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then that's when the time when you move that into ends, that stops with cock. You know what I mean? And then when you move that over, and then when that's eating okay, and you can see that, and then the ends just all come out. And at that time, that's when the cocks start to exercise. The cocks have not been out up in between them.
So we've got the youngsters in the young bird compartment.
With the ends, with the ends what's not going to be raced.
With the ends that's not going to be raised. Will they stop in the compartment with the youngsters, or will you then, once these youngsters have got describe it as they've got all the primaries up, haven't they?
Yeah.
In other words, they're fully developed, they look nice youngsters. Will you take them ends away out of that young bird compartment?
Yeah, usually 4 to 5 weeks.
4 to 5 weeks.
4 weeks old, because I don't like to see youngsters with mucky wattles when they can be feeding themselves anyway. As soon as you can see that all the youngsters are all feeding themselves, then the ends come out then.
You see, we have to describe these systems very fully, because we've got newcomers coming into the sport, and we've got fancies that's been flying on natural systems for many, many years, and they're looking for a new system, and hopefully a winning system that they can adapt themselves. So we've got the youngsters in the young bird compartment that's 4 or 5 weeks old. You've took the hens away. You've took the hens away, and you've now told me, which I know, but I'll let you explain it. The cocks is in the compartments with themselves. we've got, I understand, you have, another batch of hens
That's correct, which I race.
which you race,
That's right, yeah.
which will go to these cocks
Yeah, roughly around 6 weeks before first race.
6 weeks before the first race. If you can explain that, Barry, we're talking early March, I gather, won't we? Early March.
There's no specific time saying when you've got to actually do it.
No.
I mean, your cocks have had a good rest from your babies, you know, because they haven't reared the last few days, and these hens are completely fresh, and you know, and when it being middle of spring, the hens will lay up quick, you know what I mean, because they've never been paired up until then. They've not seen the cocks like. Some of them have been paired up for, you know, a year before, but they all, a lot of them know the boxes.
So we could say then that the widow cocks won't have had no work took out of them for 10 weeks.
They've had complete rest.
They've had a complete rest
all winter.
period, haven't they? And the hens that's going to be paired to these cocks haven't been paired at all.
No, not that.
Haven't been paired at all. So they will be full of themselves.
That's right.
Because spring's there, the light's getting
Yeah,
lighter.
everything's coming in
and
before.
they
They lay instantly.
They lay instantly
no
for
problem,
you.
they lay. I have been exercising the hens up until then while the cocks have been feeding the babies and paired up. The hens are exercised to that door then, because there's some yearlings gone into that place and they don't actually know that you know, they're not used to that door as such.
Yes,
Because
I'm with you.
it's a different compartment altogether.
Yes.
But they soon accept it, you know, you get an odd and what.
So then we've paired these hens up, which have been celibate through the winter period, haven't they?
That's
right
correct.
up to March. They'll go down onto eggs
Yeah.
within a very short period of time.
In between that, one and two eggs, I trained the cocks from the drive to these ends. To the
So
switch end.
prior to them laying,
That's right, yeah.
when they're on the drive, you'll start training the pigeons, the cocks.
Yeah, the hens will have a couple of tosses.
And the
Short-
hens,
only
the
short
hens
ones.
will also
Have a
have
couple of tosses.
a couple of
Back
tosses.
to cocks, because they're
Back to
actual
cocks,
widowed hens.
and even if odd ones are in egg, they'll still go.
They'll still go to that
won't
night,
they?
yeah.
Right, you'll leave these hens and the cocks to sit for how long?
They sit for 6 days. The first one wants to sit in 6 days, and the eggs, I don't take the balls out, I leave the balls in now. I mean, I used to cover them up, but I'm getting old now. So,
Yeah.
and it's just extra work. So I leave the balls in, and I take the hens out, then the cocks then are on widowwood, and the hens then are on widowwood. The hens go back into their place where they've been wintered, all winter. So it don't upset them, because that is their home anyway, as I think, because they're used to that place.
Right, I'm just going to repeat it now, that these celibate hens that haven't had no youngsters or nothing, they're paired up in March. They sit for 6 days on eggs.
They're
The
trained.
cocks-
They're trained thoroughly then. For
They're
every
trained
day. Yeah.
thoroughly, aren't they?
When I say thoroughly,
both the cocks
maybe twice
and the
a day.
hens, because the cocks have been trained on the drive.
Yeah.
Aren't
I don't train the cocks once they're sitting.
Once they're sitting,
They stop
the
training.
cocks stop training, but the hens
The hens then
will be
I
trained
try and get them as far as I can,
as far
quick
as you can,
possible. Yeah.
up to about 35 mile I gather.
Yes, if I can get a 40 mile on a good day, I will do.
You will do. So they've been sitting for 6 days on eggs. You'll take the eggs out. You leave the nest bowl in,
Yeah,
and you take the hens out.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah.
You put the hens in the widowwood hen section,
Yeah, in the section where they're going to.
which is at the end.
Yeah. That is
And
their home actually. What they've had, you know.
They've had that home
all
prior
winter.
to being
They've had it
paired
all
up,
winter,
haven't
yeah.
they? And these hens won't have been flying out, as you stress, you know, because
Yeah,
they won't
well,
have had much exercise, will they?
Yeah, but the hens do start to fly out on good days. You know, back end of January, to get them in somewhat like a bit of a condition. You know,
You'll build condition up
Yeah.
into them.
because the hens by then they all have molted the flights through and everything's okay. So
Everything's
you know,
right.
so I just start to let the hens out. Within a week of them going out, they'll be going like a swarm of bees. They all stick together.
Stick
and
together.
You'll get them done in an hour,
Really
an hour
going,
and a half.
really
can't you?
fit, in other
Yeah.
words.